Brick sessions, the dreaded, hateful sessions that you tag a run onto the end of a bike workout and suffer your way through.
Yeah, but do you need them? Do you have to put yourself through that in order to be ready for race day? Or can you have a good triathlon without ever having done a brick session? Today on our new segment, it doesn't yet have a name, our counterpoint argument coaches discussion.
Let us know in the comment section down below what you think it should be.
Let us know what you think it should be. We're going to discuss brick sessions. And do you need them?
Well, the answer is obvious, I believe. I mean, if you want to prepare for triathlon in which the sports are consecutively behind one another, you need to prepare and simulate that triathlon by doing brick workouts.
Interesting that that's where you go with your first point, because I happen to know for a fact that you hardly ever did any swim to bike brick sessions, and arguably that transition from swim horizontal to the bike upright is a far harder thing for your body to deal with than a bike to run transition. So is it actually something that you need to practice, or is it just that triathletes love to suffer and tagging a run onto a long hard bike just really gets you going because it's so hard?
Yeah, guilty. This isn't starting off too well, is it? No, though I will say I have, and I did used to do swim to bike brick workouts. Admittedly, more so in my short course career, where those points per second are so crucial in the sort of the draft legal racing. But I would admit, as I stepped up to long distance, I'm not sure I ever did one of those. And that swim to bike, it was, as I've alluded to, more about the process of going swim to bike rather than the sensation. It's more about just practicing the transition.
It's the transition rather than
which I still think a lot of people could benefit from.
True.
Also, to add to it, I mean, just in terms of logistics going swim to bike, you're jumping out of a swimming pool wet onto your bike. You're probably going to want to change your clothes because you're not going to get cold riding outside, particularly here in the UK. So there's that. Then obviously you've got to go and get your bike, by which point you're kind of losing the benefit of the whole reason you're doing a brick workout, which is why for that small benefit of improving your transition, is it really worth it? Which is why we more focus on the bike to run and simulating that, which you can quite easily do from your garage or from the back of your car if you're parked up somewhere, for instance.
Okay, so you're saying that it's worth it because it's easier to go in your garage and change to the run and then run out and get a bike to run brick. It's more easily done to get that small gain. But what is this small gain you're talking about here, Mark?
Well, quite simply, they help you run better off the bike. If you are better able to adapt to that change from bike to run, then you will run better off the bike. Simple.
Well, yeah, but I would argue that, I mean, transition practice aside, because we're not talking about transition practices here. You know, you can practice changing from your bike kit to your run kit in your hotel room if you need to. We're not talking about learning that process. We're talking about the actual physical thing. And what evidence do you have that people who did brick sessions actually ran better off the bike? In my experience, everyone gets off the bike in a triathlon feeling like they're running in squares, whether they did brick sessions in training or not.
Yeah, true. I mean, everyone struggles at the start of the run in a triathlon, but it does make sense that the more you practice it, the better you're able to make that change come race day.
Well, I'm not sure it does make sense, because what adaptation are you talking about here? What adaptation are you seeing? Is it some neuromuscular coordination training that you're doing to change the way you run, or is it some actual specific muscles that you're changing, that you're training to make them stronger so they can pull your legs into that running stride from the bike stroke? Or is it just like a mental thing to make you wrap your mind more around how crap it feels when you start running?
I think one of the key ones is more that coordination. So it's knowing how it might affect your form and the coordination with that, and how you counteract that. So your legs maybe wanting to continue to move in circles coming off the bike, and how you adapt to that. Also, there's just the feeling and knowing what to expect and how you mentally can override that. So I actually, to answer your question, it's probably all of the above what you've said, but I think that coordination and mental aspect is really important.
Which brings me to my next point, and maybe my most important point. So for this, I'm going to ask you a question. What's the second most common complaint that triathletes have when they finish their race and they're reviewing it?
Stomach issues.
Oh yeah,
nutrition.
fair. Okay, third most common complaint after getting off their legs feeling awful when they got off the bike and then stomach issues. What's their third most common complaint? Generally, it's that they started the run too fast and they blew up in the second half of the run.
Well, I don't complain about that because I just do it in every race.
Yeah, but then if that's the problem and that's the complaint, why would you want to train so that you can run the first half of the run, the initial part of that run, even faster? Would it not be better then to get off the bike, and your legs will hold you back because they feel awful and you haven't trained that adaptation, so your heart rate doesn't get as high. You actually pace yourself more evenly throughout the run, and when your legs do come good after a few miles, you're actually running better, and overall you have a faster run split because you never did any brick sessions.
I've never thought of it like that. You make a convincing argument, but I still just don't believe you could advise triathletes not to do brick sessions, which is exactly what the triathlon format is, these consecutive sports back to back. You have to do brick sessions.
I mean, yeah, okay. I will take it to simulate your entire race day, and you probably do want to simulate it, not just for the pacing, not just for the feeling, but also for like getting your nutrition dialed in and that kind of thing, and just being aware of what the feeling is going to be on race day, because you can't really simulate what those legs feel like unless you do a bike before you do a run. And for that, I can see your point. However, you can get that feeling on a very short brick after your long ride. There doesn't need to be these big bricks where you're simulating the whole race day and really working on that adaptation and that immediate change off the bike. I don't think that's the point in brick sessions.
Okay. So I guess probably perhaps the big takeaway from this is that maybe the longer you're going, the further the distance, you're focusing on an Ironman, the less important the transitions, but the shorter the distance of the race you're doing, I believe it is more important because there are valuable seconds to gain in practicing the actual transition element.
Fair. So the longer your triathlon is, the less important brick sessions are in training. Maybe a few shorter ones just to get that feeling. But if you go in the shorter distances, sprint and Olympic, you need to put some brick sessions in there. I think I can agree with that. I still don't think brick sessions are that important for most people.
Well, and here we go. Here's another thing as well. So a lot of people are trying to fit their training in around day-to-day life, work. And actually, a lot of people do say brick sessions are just more efficient use of their time. They've got an hour and a half in the evening, they'll jump on the bike and then quickly do a run off without that hassle of waiting and getting changed. So they just knock them out, just do them quickly.
Yeah. To which the counterpoint would be, you're not doing those runs very well. You're not particularly running with good form. You're not running fresh. You're not running well. You're just running, which means essentially what you're doing is cramming training, which is exactly what we advise our athletes not to do. You want gaps between your sessions so that you can do them well, and piling them all on the end of the day and calling it a brick session, because that's what my race is not actually what you want to be doing. You want your training to all be efficient and effective as possible, and not reinforce bad habits and bad form, which arguably a brick session at the end of a very long day to cram an hour and a half of training in is not really the way you want to be doing it.
I will agree with you on that to an extent, but I still think it's a valuable way of training for kind of simulating, or let's put it this way, inducing fatigue so that you can run simulate that feeling of a longer run in a shorter space of time. So you'll do the bike before, you induce that fatigue, and then you can do the run workout, and you'll get the benefits that are almost simulating the distance of the race you're doing in a far shorter time frame. So actually, that is also a very efficient use of time. But yes, I'm with you. Okay. Let's not do it day in, day out.
I think Mark and I we're not as far apart as we might appear here. We're kind of both in the middle on brick sessions. You don't need to do too many of them. You do need to do some of them. You don't need to do really hard ones. You do need to do some easier ones. we're kind of in order. Where do you guys fall on brick sessions? Would you agree with Mark? Do you agree with me? Or are you also somewhere in the middle? Do you do brick sessions at all? Leave your comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're enjoying this format where Mark and I discuss triathlon things, leave your suggestion on what we might discuss next week, because Mark and I will fire up the coffee mugs again next week and have another lively debate where I win at the end of it.
Ah. I say that was a very pleasant one this week. Very pleasant.
Still, I'll come on top, I think.